I wanted to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading data specialist recruitment business. They are experts in recruitment strategy and delivery for analytics and data teams. They are the go-to recruitment business for all your data roles in Australia, and they can help both with permanent hires and short-term project-focused data resources. I've used Talent Insights in the past, and I've always found them fantastic to work with. Visit them at talentinsights.com.au. Welcome to another episode of Data Futurology. In Data Futurology, we talk to leaders in the data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence space, and we discuss the challenges that leaders are facing in this area. What are the different approaches that they're taking? What are different use cases that they can port to other industries? And in general, what type of things should leaders be thinking about, considering, and hopefully improving on? And to do this, we get the varied perspectives from leaders from all around the world. And it's really, really exciting to have you all joining today. We do these live webinars, and then we release in the podcast and on YouTube. So definitely follow us there for all the episodes. Before we kick off, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, who is here on my right. So Talent Insights has been sponsoring us for a long time and supports us in bringing this content to the community. So definitely show them some love wherever you can. Great. So this morning, we're going to be talking about diversity in data science and AI, and super important topic, something that definitely opens people's eyes, opens people's minds, and I know that I've had to learn a lot about this area over the past few years, decade or so at least. And today we're joined by Fiona Milne. Fiona is the head of AI and data science at Whispir. She is also the founder of Women in Machine Learning and Data Science for the Melbourne chapter. So definitely a very strong and present leader in the space. Fiona, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. A bit cold in Melbourne and a bit early for my liking, but that's okay.
I was going to say, a lot of people are like, these breakfast ones are a bit tough.
Yeah, props to the attendees to get enough extra early to come to something like that.
Right. No, it's great. So thanks. And thanks so much for making the time. Thanks for the audience for joining. So Fiona, I wanted to kick us off by asking you a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of years ago now, I did my bachelor's in maths, and from there I went to work in the finance and banking industry and kind of realized that I was really interested in data, albeit in Excel spreadsheets. From there I moved into life insurance, which is probably as boring as it sounds, but that's where I got my first taste of databases. Really understood the power of data. And in that time, we were getting more and more data coming through. Data science was becoming more of a thing. And that's when I realized that I wanted to move into the technology industry. So worked for a few startups, worked for a big tech company or an Australian bigger tech company. And then, now I'm at Whispir, heading up the AI and data team.
Amazing. And that's been almost a year now that you've been at Whispir, and almost 3 years since you started the Melbourne chapter of Women in Machine Learning and Data Science. So keen to dive into those parts and keen to dive into the diversity. So Fiona, tell me how did you end up starting the Melbourne chapter for Women in Machine Learning and Data Science?
Yeah, so I have told this story a few times, so apologies if anyone on the call's heard it before, but actually one night I attended a meetup and I had a fairly negative experience. So it was a few weeks into my first real job as a data scientist at a company called Eliza. in those first few weeks, I was asked to write a blog on a piece of work that we did. And me being not a very natural writer, and also in a brand new job, and also having to write a blog that kind of represented the project where other people worked on it, there was a lot of pressure on me. Anyway, the blog went out. It was super successful. It was picked up by I think the CEO of the city of Melbourne, which led to kind of more talks with the city of Melbourne around potential work that Eliza could do there. So I was really happy with the way that the blog had panned out. And that week, a colleague of mine was running the TensorFlow meetup in Melbourne. And at the end of it, a random guy came up to the team and started asking us questions around the blog that guy at Eliza had written. And the profile picture attached to my blog, I actually had short hair at the moment, at the time. So the guy's obviously associated having short hair and working in data science with being a man. But thankfully, my colleagues kind of corrected him and said, oh, no, it wasn't a guy at Eliza, it was Fiona. She stood right there. And the person just continued to ignore me and continued to ask my male counterpart colleagues about the blog that I'd written. And that was it was the first time I was really jarred by an experience like that. Yes, I'd experienced all the usual kind of death by a million cuts things, being underpaid, having to prove myself as a default as opposed to the default being that you're a subject matter expert. This one really jarred me because it was just so blatant and really upsetting. And I went home really upset. I think I was in tears in the tram on the way home, just because it was such a shock to me. And the next morning, my boss at the time, the CEO of Eliza, James Wilson, who had no idea of how that experience had gone or how I'd been upset the night before, just happened to say to me, have you heard of this meetup, Women in Machine Learning and Data Science? If not, you should look into it and you should start your own chapter. There's not one in Melbourne. And at that point, I kind of consciously decided to turn a crappy situation into a really good one. And yeah, from there, I think we've currently got over 1,300 members. Prior to COVID, we were
That's
running.
Amazing. Sorry, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Not as many as you, Felipe, but almost as many followers. But yeah, we prior to COVID, we were having monthly meetups. It's just a really good atmosphere. So prior to kicking off with Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, I'd experienced both women-focused meetups in the data science space. For example, Our Ladies in R. And the experiences that I had attending both those meetups, I only attended, I think, one Melbourne meeting, it's called, the R meetup. But yeah, there's just this vibe of people asking questions to kind of, mostly men, I might add, asking questions to sound smart, to sound like they know what they're talking about. And then you go to Our Ladies and people are asking questions because they're interested and they're keen and they want to learn and they want to help each other. It's not competition. So yeah, I was really keen to kind of provide that space in the machine learning landscape for women and gender minorities to feel safe, to show them that there are pathways to becoming a data scientist and becoming senior data scientist and then into leadership, to show them that I suppose data science isn't actually that hard. Quite often you'll find, or I found anyway, people quite often like to make data science sound really complex and hard. And yes, it is complex and hard, but it's part of our job as a data scientist to explain it in accessible ways so that people can conceptually understand it so that they can weigh in on the conversation. And yeah, I've had really good experiences. I'm really excited about kicking it off since COVID. And yeah, even, I mean, the thing that I take the most out of it is hearing from people coming up to me after meetups or reaching out to me after they've seen me talk to say, I have gotten into the data science because you've showed me that it's possible, really. So that's been a huge win for me.
That's incredible. That's really great to be able to champion a space for so many people in the industry and help them find a path and sort of start the snowball for people to help each other, and then hear back that the impact that you're having on these people's lives, it's incredible. So there was a lot there that I wanted to dive into, and maybe a good place to start is for the people that may not have diversity as front of mind in their working life. What would you say are the benefits of diversity? Why should they be considering to be more open, more inclusive? And yeah, what is the why should they explore that space?
Yeah, sure. So diversity is really important. It's kind of diverse teams are proven to be more creative and more innovative. They're proven to be better at solving problems. They're proven to be better at making decisions, and usually that's usually around half the time. And it's been proven that diverse teams have half the meetings. And I don't know about you, but less meetings is always a good thing. And this all kind of leads to better products. It leads to people being happy with where they want to work, which happy employees will generally do better work for you, and there'll be less turnover. And yes, the result is more revenue, but I don't know about you, but it's not something that I'll focus on too much, but it is something that maybe businesses might like to know, that you will, on average, make more money if you've got more diverse teams. Yeah, it's super important, and we've got a long way to go. So I think in our industry, within Australia, the last survey that I read, there was 21% of people in our industry identifying as women or non-binary. General tech industry, we've only got 28% women in the industry. We've got massive pay gaps, so women get paid $25,000 less on average. And wow. At the rate that we're going to fix this gender pay gap, it's going to take 101 years to get gender pay equality. So yeah, I would be a lot happier if it was less than 101 years, because I probably won't be alive then to see it. But yeah, we'll see. But it's also been proven that if you, I mean, the GDP will benefit if we get to that. If we close the gap on gender equality, we can. That there are studies that's been shown that I think GDP will increase by 25 billion if we just increase the number of women in those roles from 28% to 34%. So that's a 6% increase to increase our GDP by 25 billion. So yeah, the money's there. The money's there to back up these claims, and we just have to figure out a way to do it.
That's amazing. And so many, benefits there in terms of being more inclusive, but I guess from a business perspective around the efficiency, less meetings, better products, and then even going to the financial benefits, they are huge. Yeah. Like super significant, and definitely super attractive for people in business. Why do you think it's been an area that's been slow to improve, and why do you think it's projected to take so long to I guess eradicate not eradicate, because it was up to 34%, but to get to that meaningful improvement? Why do you think it's still a barrier?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I know for me, when I look back on my career and kind of how I was treated being a woman in a more technical field. I mean, we've got as soon as kids are a baby, we've got different toys going into different gendered babies. For me myself, I remember when I was applying to go and study maths, I remember my own mother, and it's through no fault of her own, but saying, "Are you sure you want to do that? There's only like 10% of your classmates will be women." And I hadn't questioned my choice at that point until she said that, and then I was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should be doing a more female industry." So kind of just perpetuating that idea that maths or technical subjects are for men. I think it even goes back to when it's quite popular in the zeitgeist to be like, "Oh, maths is hard. I was never good at maths." You'll quite often hear that language directed to little girls as well, and that might be coming from their mother or their father or whoever. But I think we need to go right back to the start to figure out where we're going wrong. And I think for me, we just the patriarchy is very well embedded, and it takes a long time to shift something like that.
It does. There's it's hard opening people's eyes and people's minds to this world that may be unseen for them. I think that a lot of people wouldn't have stopped to think about the if they're not facing extra difficulties, it would be difficult for them to stop to think about how other people are the journey that other people are facing, and how they're feeling about it, and the differences and the inequality and the lack of access. And then once people get to that stage of awareness, then generally making a transition and doing something different requires effort. Not only in this, but even if you're learning a new skill. So there's a spot of making an effort to make a change. And stick it to it for quite a while. There are definitely two areas where I think people need support, and I've definitely seen men in leadership positions that I've seen transitions in people going from not aware to aware, and then staying in aware for a long time, or at least what I thought was a long time. And I was like, come on, let's get to action. And sometimes, you got to help them out. And then through the action, they do feel they're like, oh shit, this is hard. Like, this is more effort, because I'm trying to find these people. And I'm trying to do something new to be more inclusive. And it's exercising kind of like new muscles for them. So anyway, any help that we can provide is beneficial, and this is obviously to everyone. We have sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to agree with that. I mean, we can't. I mean, we got to assume that people are behaving a certain way, not out of malice, but just because that's the only way. So I definitely agree with you that it's not a case of being angry or being trying to put people down because they think a certain way. It's kind of, you've got to be gentle. You've got to explain why something isn't right. You've got to explain why if a guy in leadership's saying, oh, the gender pool is just too shallow, why that's not good enough. And it's certainly, you can't blame people because that's all they know. But what you can do is encourage people to be more empathetic and just be gentle and empathetic with them whilst you're doing that.
That is really nice. That is a great approach. Thank you for sharing that. We had a question come in the chat, which says, if there's a financial incentive for businesses to hire more women in data science, then why do I, as a woman, still find it so hard to find a job as a data scientist or engineer, or even, and then it says, difficult to find a job as a data scientist or engineer, even with a top-notch degree in STEM and relevant work experience. It's a great question. Did you have any thoughts?
That's really disappointing to hear. And I'd be interested to hear who this person is and have a chat with them, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, there are systematic problems, and I'm really sorry to hear that that's the person's experience. I know that as the data science industry matures, jobs can be a little bit harder to get, and maybe some companies are looking for X amount of years experience, but it's a bit of a cold start problem in that if you've never been given a foot in the door in the first place, then you might not have those years of experience. So companies can use that as an excuse to not hire people. So yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that's happening, and I can't answer why, except that needs to change.
Definitely, yeah, I agree. Definitely needs to change, and it is a really tough situation to be in. There's kind of obviously there's a lot of factors that are creating these additional barriers for diversity or for diverse people to come in, and I know that and at least in my case, which is a totally different experience. But if we think about the minority side, I came to Australia with not being able to speak English, and I wanted to stay. And even though I at times I felt like I had good experience, I was finding it difficult to find jobs. And some of the things that helped me was trying to find and to like ask around and look online about teams which hired people like me, or who kind of like were not proven, but if you ask around, it's like where do people like me work? And there's been through that I found areas, business like small businesses or teams that were more progressive and more inclusive in their thinking, and that at least helped me. Also, I looked for leaders that are known to be inclusive, and kind of like by understanding people's profile. Obviously, it's hard to say who are all the leaders and then how do you classify them each. But for example, as a resource, it can be meetups, it can be areas like this podcast, of where we interview leaders, and we've had a lot of leaders come and talk about diversity. There's obviously like blog posts, and there's forums online where people talk about what is their team composition. Obviously things like Reddit. Sorry, I'm just trying to throw sort of alternatives and options, because sometimes the finding what that the proven path or path of least resistance, trying to find a path that at least some people have walked through before, that will be helpful, because then that shows that, which is one of the questions in the poll, that shows that there's leadership there that fosters the diversity, that kind of like gets it, and ideally and probably will be able to give a leg up and help those people in their careers. So I would consider that as some options to tell us in the chat if any of that resonates with you.
Just to that questioner, that whoever the questioner was can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to have a chat with them.
Yeah, definitely, and same for me. Feel free to reach out, and I think we can both try to help. That'd be great. We also have a comment from Liam. It says, one of our engineers is a woman, and I love working with her. Like you said, Fiona, she's so intellectually curious, and I love talking shop with her. She picks my brain on sales, and I pick her brain on product. That's great. That's a great comment, Leo. Thank you. Yeah, really, really, really good. And so what I might do actually, I've got a couple of my notes on the topics that I want to dive into from your comments before, but I might close the poll and we go through those answers. We have about 85% of people voted, got a chance to vote. I'm sharing the results now, so everyone should be able to see them. Is that right? So the first question was, is diversity important in data science team? And when we say diversity, we talk about gender, minority, etc. Important in data science team, and most people say totally, which is, I guess, not surprising. Saying that people are attending a webinar on diversity, so that's really good. Some people said mostly, and then minority people said not really. Any thoughts there, Fiona?
Just something that I'll add to, I've explained why diverse teams are important kind of generally, but specific to data science and machine learning, where we have, there's a lot of risk involved, right? We're building out these models that are potentially being scaled worldwide and touching lots of different places within the world. So we can't see our own blind spots generally. So the removal of risk within data science teams specifically is really important. And I don't know if anyone has watched Coded Bias, which has just come out on Netflix recently. But it's a really, really good watch to show you how things can go wrong with the models and the systems that we're building.
That's really good, and definitely, at least I've experienced firsthand, and I've also been told from quite a few guests in the podcast, been told stories of blind spots in AI in machine learning models because of the lack of diversity in the team, and at least my thinking in that area has improved a little bit, where before I used to think there's society's bias in the data, the algorithm learns from the data, and then the algorithm makes decisions that are perpetuating the bias, and that's true. I think that's too simplistic though, in the sense that the bias that are in the data that gets fed into the algorithms, those bias can be better detected and better discussed by a diverse AI team, and people are able to capture and catch biases or unfairness in the development of the AI, and that kind of like helps us have a conversation where we get to decide the society that we want to create in the future, instead of blindly perpetuating the one that we've had so far, knowing that there's improvements that we can make there. So that's at least that's helped me sort of better understand another point of value for diverse teams.
Yeah, and on that as well, it shouldn't just be data scientists, right, having these discussions. So just back to my point around being able to communicate the work that we do and how it kind of all conceptually works, and bringing other kind of non-technical or non-data science people into the conversation, so that we can find our blind spots more so. But it really is our job as data scientists to be that communicator. Don't be a gatekeeper. Don't make your work sound more complicated than it should be. Like, a skill that you need as a data scientist is be able to explain how your system works to any business person, not just another data scientist.
Yeah, huge value there in terms of being able to make data science accessible. Over time, more people in organizations are going to need to learn about data science. There's a lot of pressure for non-technical people to understand it today. That's going to continue to increase. So definitely help by being inviting and distilling or communicating data science in a way that's non-threatening. That's really good. Got a couple of questions coming in. One says, I don't personally believe in name and shame, but how would you spread the message that a particular organization has a boys club?
Just call it out. I mean, that's a lot easier said than done. And it depends on where you are in your career and what your personality type's like. But I mean, if you can call it out, it's quite often my approach. People generally know where I stand on the diversity problem. So highlighting when people are being exclusionary or maybe using exclusionary terms, or one thing that I like to do, which is a bit funny, is if there is a man trying to explain something to me that I already know, I will ask them, "Are you mansplaining to me?"
Right.
Because
right.
it makes light of the situation, right? And yeah. people don't know as well, so it's yeah. I mean, if you can call it out at the time, if you feel comfortable. If not, find people within your organization that you could maybe open up to. Hopefully your manager is open to hearing those concerns. Quite often for me throughout my career, I voted with my feet. So if I knew that I was being paid less than someone who was a male that was more junior than me, which happened at a big tech company within Melbourne, I just left. And when I left, they offered me more money, at which point, like, it's way too late in the game. So you can, if you are in a position to vote with your feet, go for it. There's lots of organizations that pride and look for diversity, and they will happily take you in. If you want to stay at that place and make a change, then you need to start talking to people that you feel most comfortable talking to. If you want to, and when you vote with your feet, you can the tech community, especially the data science and the AI community, it's small. So if you're having a bad experience within a company or within a specific team, that word will spread fairly quickly. And it will be up to that team to kind of course correct, hopefully.
Yeah, very nice. And we have a question from Fiona Nelson, which is related to one of your last points there. She says, is there any sort of publicly available ranking of employers who or list of employers that embrace diversity, or do we need to do our own research? Do you know of any, Fiona?
I mean, I think from being a woman in tech for X number of years, it's kind of like a sixth sense or a intuition that you kind of develop. People, organizations that actively do stuff in the diversity space, they will, I mean, that's their marketing team will love that, right? And they'll be putting posts up on LinkedIn. I think, if you do research on the internet, I'm sure you will be able to find which companies are making a difference, and which companies don't really care about it. Also the word of mouth thing. So if you ask within your network what certain companies, how important they will place diversity, I think people will happily tell you. If you go to conferences or you listen to people talk, and you can tell that the people talking care about diversity, then you can always ask where they work. It's not easy, but it's not hard. Companies that do pride it won't be hiding the fact that they pride it. It's the companies that aren't saying much about it that you probably want to dig into a little bit deeper.
Right. Yeah. And I've Yeah, I've definitely found some resistance in organizations where I've worked in the past when trying to hire data science teams, and um, like literally, I had cases where people were making comments of, "Hey, you hired a guy with long hair," or yeah, what's that about? He looks too unprofessional to work here, or yeah, you're or comments around like, oh, all the women in your team are from India, or they weren't, but they looked like that. And I was like, oh, are you just like bringing them all over? What's going on? Like, yeah, like stupid shit. So yeah, definitely there's I would say, yeah, find ideally, and if people can research and share a list of organizations who pride themselves on being more inclusive, leaders that are more inclusive, and share wherever there's teams where that are inclusive. It'd be great to get the word out that way.
It might, and it might also be worth noting that you don't specifically have to go to a place that has already got that solved, right? Because
yes,
if you want to make a difference, and not everyone does, and some people want to focus on other parts of their career, but companies that aren't priding themselves in diversity and inclusion are generally not very diverse and inclusive, right? And the only way that they can change that is by becoming more diverse and inclusive. So sometimes you can make a decision that is recognizing the fact that the companies that you're going to go and work for isn't quite there yet, but you know that you can make a difference when you get there as well. So it might also just, if we all just go to, I don't know, I'm going to say zero, but somewhere that, or Atlassian that really cares about this stuff, then all the other companies are just going to get left behind.
Exactly. Yeah. And as I was looking at the Q&A side, there was a lot of good comments on the chat as well. So yeah, Conrad, following the question around, diversity is important. Why are we not seeing more diverse people being hired? I would love to see this. Definitely the case. And in sometimes like there are well-intentioned leaders making huge blunders in the space, and I've been guilty of that in the past as well. And I was telling Fiona the other day that when I was building a team, we had I was hiring for 10 data scientists. We had 300 applicants. It was about 42% female applications. And I had been quite proactive in reaching out to groups that were predominantly female, like the art ladies and the pie ladies, and groups like that, as well as like Data Science Melbourne and universities and things. So we had 42% of initial applications were female. I sent out a self-assessment survey with some, which I learned afterwards, some biased language in my questions that really detracted females from answering the survey. And then what we had was 50% of people answered the survey. So we went from 300 to about 150, just under 150. And but the ratio of females went from 42% to 12%. And we were hiring for 10 people, and in the end, that team, we followed kind of like that 10% female, and we ended up hiring one female out of 10. And between that hiring round and the next one, I went back and I asked females about what had happened, and women that I knew. I was teaching at RMIT University at the time, and I had students that applied but then didn't fill out the survey. And after speaking with quite a few, I learned that I had not intentionally, but I put some language in the survey where I was asking people if they were a gun Python coder or a gun statistical modeling and people were uncomfortable saying that. And anyway, lots of lessons there, but even when people have the right intentions, we can make mistakes. So I love Fiona's point of view and perspective here around be kind, be empathetic, help people on their journey, and help them improve their blind spots, because that's how we're gonna improve.
And it's really cool that you're obviously a scientist at heart, because you've recognized that the numbers are telling you that something is going wrong, and you've gone back and you've tried to figure out what it was. And I know that there was some language there, but you were also asking people to rate how good they think they are at certain skills. And traditionally, women will underestimate their skills, whereas men will generally overestimate their skills. So being aware of that kind of difference and how people will answer questions, and kind of maybe normalizing for that, it's really important.
Super important. So definitely, a lot to improve there. I also learned afterwards that there's websites now where you can put in your job ad, and it tells you whether you're using gender biased language and what to change. So that's at least helped me as well. People were saying in the chat that Conrad was saying, let's spread the message of which companies are good, are inclusive. Shelley says company reviews on Seek or Glassdoor are good places to have a chat, to look at. So that's really good.
Yeah. And on the knowing which companies are inclusive, something that I'm quite passionate about is this idea of an open salary policy. So I will, if someone that I have any kind of relationship with ask me how much I'm getting paid, I will tell them, especially if it's for them to help them figure out what they're worth. This idea that salary shouldn't be talked about is a ridiculous idea started by people that are getting paid too much for what they do. The only people that are concerned about other people knowing how much they get paid is people that get paid too much, right? So I'll often quite often have friends or people within my network reaching out to me to ask for advice around salary. But yeah, that's definitely one thing that I will advise, and also negotiate. I'm quite often helping friends and peers negotiate, and it's a lot harder said than done. It's not something that I've ever done in my life, which is interesting, but I'll quite happily help others to negotiate. But if you can take away that stigma around talking about salaries, then companies will be forced to be a lot fairer in how they pay their staff.
I love that. Yeah, bring the transparency, push for transparency, and start the change.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is awesome. I really love that.
How much you get paid, Felipe?
Well, too much, I think. No, especially after this conversation, I'm like, oh. Yeah, no, I think it's a lot of at the moment. It's to me, and it feels like there's a lot of senior roles that are difficult to for people of minorities and of diverse backgrounds to access, and for me, like I feel really lucky with my journey, and one of the reasons why I wanted to start the podcast was to kind of say, like if you didn't speak English like a few years ago, you can make it. You can do something. You can help others. You can help others be better than you. And that is one of the things that drives me, and drives me to continue to do this kind of like as a side gig. And people ask me like, why like, like why do you persevere in doing something on the side on top of your job? But it's important. And I know that for you, Fiona, is really similar in the sense of like, you also feel a sense that we need visible leaders that look different, that come from different parts, that think differently, that are diverse in their genders and across the spectrum. Is that right?
Yeah. So although I had lots of negative experience throughout my career, and I'm sure I still will, I have had a handful of people champion me, and I wouldn't be where I am today if those handful of, and they were all men, okay, up until very recently, until last year, I had a couple of men in my career just recognize potential and give me a chance. More recently, I've had women champion me as well. So to name a few, Linda MacGyver, who runs an institute that tries to help teach data science to high school and primary school kids, as well as the teachers, and Michelle Playfair from Yao. But until I met those two, it was always men championing me. So when I kind of landed my first dream gig as a data scientist, it's something that I dreamed of for so long. I didn't have any goals after that point. And I didn't realize until I landed my gig, and it was the first couple of weeks, and someone at the new job asked me, what are my career goals? I was like, well, I've been striving to become a data scientist for so long. That's all I've wanted. And then I suppose from there, I kind of made a decision that because I didn't have people that looked like me championing me through my earlier career, I really wanted to kind of be that person for others. And there was a lot of that that went into me kicking off the Women in Machine Learning and Data Science meetup. But yeah, for a lot of people, if you don't see people that look like you or people that you relate to in leadership roles, then a lot of people will just think that there is no pathway. So I'm super keen to try and show people that it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter if you've got tattoos. It doesn't matter if you've got whatever hairstyle, purple mullet, much to my mother's dismay. But it doesn't matter. What is on your head doesn't make a difference to how you're going to work. And if a company is going to judge you based on that, then you don't want to work for them, to be honest.
Definitely not. Amen. Also, awesome point there. Really good. The let's go back to the poll. And the second, so we did the first question. The second one was around which gender do you think was the most negatively impacted by working remotely during the pandemic? Interesting question. We were discussing whether to include it or not. Majority of people said that females were more negatively impacted by the pandemic. What are your thoughts, Fiona?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty proven fact that women have been more negatively affected for a number of reasons. One is more have lost jobs because of the type of work that they do. But I feel like women probably have had a lot more pressure on average at home to take care of the home and to homeschool and to take care of the kids. So women who have a home to take care of or kids to take care of would be finding it harder to be on Zoom all day. Not only that, but if women are losing jobs, I mean, I think we already on average end up with half the super as men. I don't have the exact stats right here, but we're already retiring with a massively amount less super than men. If women are losing jobs, there's no money going into the super. If women are losing jobs, they're withdrawing $10,000, $20,000 out of their super to help them through this period. So that's just making that problem even more worse. So yeah, COVID has been particularly hard on some rather than others, and we need to, I suppose, over-index on those things to kind of bring us back to the direction that we were heading.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so important to keep reminding ourselves, to keep reminding people. I feel that it's a message that I would like to hear more often, and definitely I'm gonna put some reminders. Because I even see it with my wife, that like sometimes she has a training day that she's got to do on Zoom, which is kind of like a class that happen on random days, and she's at home with 2 kids. And yeah, I've done a couple of days where I've taken the day off, but not enough. So thank you for that. Question 3 was, have you had supporters in your career that have guided you and helped you progress? You touched on that before. The majority of people said that yes, they've had, 85% of people said yes, they've had people that have helped them. 15% said no. Any further thoughts to share in your side, Fiona?
Yeah, I'm glad that the majority have had those people in their careers. I think I've already mentioned that those people were predominantly men for me. But yeah, I suppose I would be keen to know how many people had people that were similar to them championing them. But yeah, it's good to hear. Definitely, when you find a boss or someone who can see the potential in you and wants to help you, then foster that relationship, because they are really important relationships in your career. And you will find them. People will, if you have potential, people will eventually recognize that. And yeah, it's definitely a good way to progress.
And when you say foster that relationship, I think it is key. Could you expand a little bit on what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, just like fostering any relationship, really, it's a two-way street. That other person might be championing you for their own selfish reasons, right? They might want to look good, or they might want really awesome people in their team, so that's why, and then it makes their lives easier. So it's definitely a two-way street. And yeah, just kind of once you find a good boss, then definitely stick with it for a while. They're quite rare to find.
Right? Yeah, quite rare. And in that case, like, would you recommend moving with the boss, like following them to other jobs or other departments, other organizations? Like if you find someone that's a good leader, someone good to work with, stick with them.
Yeah, I mean, if that works for you, definitely. Yeah. So I very much had that advice given to me when I worked at Eliza with James Wilson, the awesome CEO there. When I was offered the job at Whispir, the biggest thing kind of holding me back from saying yes was that I wouldn't work with James anymore. But I kind of made a conscious decision that I really, if I stuck with James, I knew that life would be good, I would be championed, I would be looked after. I wanted to step out that comfort zone. Not everyone does, and I will always have James in my life. So, and who knows, maybe we'll work together one day. But yeah, if it works for you, follow that good boss.
I love it. That's I'm so glad I asked. That's great. There's definitely a timing thing. There's a point at which you have to back yourself and go outside your comfort zone and realize that if you don't work together, it doesn't mean end of relationship. And if you've had people cheering you on and helping you from the sidelines, they're very likely to continue to want to
Exactly.
do that. So that's really great. Thanks, Fiona. The last question that we had on the poll was, can one person know all of data science? 96% of people said no. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, whenever I'll talk at an event, I will emphasize that there is no possible way that one person knows everything about data science. Our field is so broad and so young as well. There's breakthroughs happening all the time. There's such a broad range of use cases and different specialities within data science that it would be totally impossible to know everything. But yeah, just the importance of that statement is just to remember that when you are going through the journey, if you're applying for a job and you see skills that you might not have, or if you see a job that you like, but you feel like you're not good enough because you don't feel confident that you know enough. No one knows everything, especially in data science. Everyone is generally winging it. So you'll have a problem, or you will define a problem, and then you will look for ways to solve that using data or modeling or whatever works. And no problem is the same. So you're consistently learning new things, and you need to, I suppose, be comfortable with learning new things all the time is the main thing. Don't focus on knowing everything. Just focus on being passionate about the work that you're doing, and and just keeping your brain fresh and yourself learning new things.
That's really great. Thank you so much. We had some nice comments on the chat. Fiona Nelson said, I had great women and men sponsors who helped my career. They were all white like me, I just realized. And FXN, who asked the first question around not being able to find a job, she says, enjoyed the open discussion and naming of challenges. That's really good. Fiona Nelson came back and said, I enjoyed the openness and honesty too. And then Conrad says, I think it's important to hear the issues that others are facing and be aware and sensitive about it so you can make a change when it's needed. That is great. Always really good comments. Guys, thank you so much. I can't believe the hour has flown by. Fiona, that was awesome. It's such an important topic to discuss and to keep front of mind and to continue discussing. I want to thank you for sharing your journey, your challenges, your perspectives, and to help us all be more aware and be better in this space. So hopefully we can bring that future faster to our present. Thank you for being a visible leader in this space. And thank you for all the work that you do. Thanks for being in the show too.
Thanks, Felipe.
Thanks everyone for joining. And we will release this on YouTube. So follow us there on the podcast. Huge thank you to our sponsor, Talent Insights. They support us in bringing this content to the community. Definitely show them some love. Thanks to everyone who joined. Thank you so much to Fiona. It was amazing. Guys, have a great day. Have a fantastic weekend. See you next time. That brings this episode to conclusion. Thank you so much for listening. Please find us on datafuturology.com or on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram as Data Futurology. Also go to datafuturology.com/podcast to find the show notes for this and any other episodes. If you liked this episode, it would mean a lot to us if you could leave us a review wherever you listen to our podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that it was helpful and valuable for you. Thanks again, and see you next time.